in this, and I hope that by the time we leave here today, you guys are much better informed and equipped to help yourself or family member or friend who has disabilities get it, take part of this program and the many different opportunities we're going to present today. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started and introduce myself. I'm Ken McNaughton. I'm the chair of the Disabled Access Committee team. This is my co-chair, Z. He doesn't go by any other name, just Z. Or his last name starts with Z. If you want to call him ZZ, that's okay.
Top it off.
Just top it off. Right. All right, so we are both vets, and yeah, pardon me, I'm just. Good. Oh, come on. Oh, there it is. All right. That's who we are. That's kind of what we've done in our life. After the military, we've done this, and I'll let you talk more about yourself and then.
So both of us, brothers from other parents, both of us disabled vets, both of us former firefighters. It's kind of in our blood and in our genes to, one, figure out how to live life ourselves, and then how to spread that around and be able to help others figure those kinds of things out. Both of us very involved here at the Wildlife Council, as you can probably tell. I'm actually the president this year of the Wildlife Council. When I first started coming here as a hunter ed instructor, someone told Ken about me and he said, hey, this is what I'm doing here. And we kind of got into it. Along with what we do here at the Wildlife Council for disabled access, Ken and I both are also on Fish and Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife's ADA Advisory Committee. Ken is the Region 1 rep, so he covers all of Region 1. And I chuckle because we both know how to get outside this region. And I am the chair and the at-large rep, so I cover the whole state. We both do a lot with the commission as far as talking and presenting to the commission as far as different issues with disabled access. We talk a lot about some of the political side of things. We also talk a lot about how do you approach things. One of the things you'll hear me talk a lot about, and a lot of people still, it's a mindset thing, it's just what you grew up with. It's called person first language. How many other disabled vets do we have? Okay. We've earned that title, right? But if you get to know me at all, get to know Ken and how much we both do outside of our disabilities, the term disabled should not come first. We are people with disabilities. A disabled vet is an earned title, but other than that, a hunter with a disability, an angler with a disability, or an outdoors person with a disability, you're still a person. You're not any less than anybody else. And so it's critical to understand that. So you'll hear us talk a lot about that today. We both love eating. We both love coffee. We love going out and doing stuff. And I'm actually a professional counselor, but I tell people we counsel each other. And so there's times that I'll see him being extra quiet and I'll be like, all right, what's up? And vice versa. We do raptor count together during the winter. So those kinds of things. We've gotten to really develop a good relationship with each other. Our wives know each other, which means they tag team against us, which could be scary. But they also know how to give the other one a hard time whenever it's needed. If you ask them, yeah. But we want you to feel free to ask questions today. We want you to feel comfortable in, I don't know. I don't know is a great response to anything, or I'd like to know more about it. Okay. That's how we get better at what we do, is hearing what you see that you might need. There is so many different possibilities when it comes to disabilities. If someone has the same exact spinal cord injury that I have, doesn't mean that they're going to have the same abilities, lack of abilities, mindset, you name it. Every individual is different. And so trying to find the right way to handle that is an individual thing. It's one of the things that Fish and Wildlife is starting to understand, and they're becoming a lot more receptive to that. We're really blessed here in Region 1 in that we've got a regional office that is already been very active, very helpful, very ears wide open to things that we need. So we're going to talk a lot about those kinds of things today. So the PowerPoint is more sort of like the Pirate's Code. It's not a rule, it's more like
A guide.
a guide, okay? So if you think you're getting us off, no, we're gonna try to make sure we cover those things. So like I said, feel free to ask questions.
Absolutely. All right. Hopefully, did everybody, when you came in the door, get a little raffle ticket stub? Everybody, who did not? All right, we got it covered. At the end of the day, we are going to take a drawing out of those tickets, and somebody's gonna go home with a fishing trip with John Soul. He's a retired Great Falls police officer. This is what he does in his retirement. He gives back completely. He doesn't even want reimbursement for gas. He does this all the time for anybody. If you need to get out on the water because you don't have any other opportunity, he wants to make sure you get out there. And this particular trip he's giving away will be for springers and sockeye up on the Upper Columbia in July. So I'm not taking the ticket because I'm the host, but you guys, some of you guys are gonna go home with that trip today. So I hope I wish I could stay with all of you. Then we just take a big old barge up the river and everybody fish off. All right. That's it. We have some guests here today. First one I want to introduce is Kevin Robinette from Fishing Game. Kevin, you have anything you want to share with everybody about ADA and?
Just a little bit. So my name's Kevin Robinette. I'm the Regional Wildlife Program Manager. Been working for the department since 1996 and for the wildlife program since about 2004. And that's about the time I started working with the council. We rely heavily on volunteers to get most of what we get done. And it's organizations like the council. Without them, we couldn't do what we do. Not only with ADA type work, but actually a lot of our survey work and our research work too. So I'm really glad to be here on behalf of the department. Normally you'd have our regional director, Steve Zanger, under this, but it's the opening day of turkey season. If you know Steve, you know where he is. So anyway, I'll be here through the morning. And if you have other questions that maybe aren't even related to ADA, questions about the department in general or hunting seasons or wildlife viewing, I'm happy to answer them. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, and Stacy, where are you at?
I'm over here now.
Oh, she's over. Stacy will be taking pictures. She's also the public affairs person at Fishing Game, so if you're gonna be in a picture, she'll probably ask you to sign a waiver for release. Just so she can publish it on their media. So don't be afraid of it, maybe do something with your face or something. My face?
Yeah, your face, yeah. Only your face.
Only my face, okay. All right, normally I would get right into the basics, the nuts and bolts of how to become registered in Fishing Game system. But Josh White from Colorado National Forest is here, and he's got to leave at a certain time. And I want to go ahead and give him an opportunity to take care of his business, and then we'll jump back to the basics. Trying to.
Great. Well, while you're doing that, Ken, I just want to say a lot of hands, the disabled vet question, a lot of hands. Thank you all. Thank you guys for your continued service. This is an amazing opportunity, I think. Very important to the U.S. Forest Service, this idea of equity and giving opportunities for people to recreate and use the outdoors, their national forests in a way that works for them. This is a great opportunity to do that. We have recently, a couple of years now, Ken, right? We've entered into some volunteer agreements to get some help in maintenance, keeping our disabled hunter routes on the Colorado National Forest open, accessible. We've been improving them. A few more platforms have been going up. We have really been refining what this process looks like of how we work together to make sure that we're offering that opportunity to folks that want to take part in that, to get out, recreate, hunt, hopefully be successful. Although if you're like me in hunting, it's more about just getting out, right? Because anyways, I can't seem to figure out how to be successful, but. So what I thought I'd talk about today is when I'll introduce myself. My name is Josh White. I am the Deputy Forest Supervisor for the Caldwell National Forest. I used to be the District Ranger in our Kettle Falls office. I've been on the Caldwell for going on about 8 or 9 years at this point, so I've been around a little while. I have been the lead for our Disabled Hunter Program and Access Program since I got here. It's important to me that we continue this program, and so I've been working on this and recently a lot more with Ken and the folks here to try to make sure that we're keeping that up. So we have, I want to cover a few things before we get to the routes. We have a few things going on out on the Caldwell National Forest that people may want to be aware of when you're planning your trips or you're thinking about what your season may look like. We have a lot of activity going on in the forest, a lot of vegetation management going on, timber harvest, fuels reduction. We're working on the wildfire crisis. Everyone who's been around the West knows we've got a wildfire problem. It comes from the health of our forests. It comes from a lack of management in the past. It comes from a lack of appropriate fire management and fire suppression. And so we've really been working out a lot on the Caldwell, trying to return management to the forest, return the health of our forests so that we don't have quite the detrimental fire seasons that we've had in the past. What that means, however, is in certain areas on the forest that you may plan to go, you may run into timber sale operations, you may run into operators, you may run into people burning slash piles, you may run into people that are improving roads and improving fish habitat and replacing culverts, things like that. So there is a time when that area that you may want to go to may be closed. We have a new public information group on the forest, and they're really working to try to make sure that we are doing everything we can to let you all know what that will look like early enough. The goal, although we won't always get it, but the goal is that you don't drive up the road Saturday morning to hunt and realize that that area is in the middle of a timber sale or the road is closed temporarily. So we're hoping to get better at doing that. The other issue that we've seen here in the last couple of years is wildfire itself. And when we get to our individual routes, we have one up out at Kettle Falls called the Betty Creek route. For 2 seasons now, it's been closed early in the season because we've had wildfire in that area. What I will say is we had wildfire in that area last year, and the way that we were able to manage that, use the roads, it's going to be a really nice route for people to use this year, really good access. But those things do happen. And so we try as much as we can to get that information out and minimize the impact. But in order to manage the forest, sometimes we need to temporarily shut stuff down. What these routes look like. So we have a number of access opportunities. And how I would describe these is closed roads that we authorize those with the disabled hunter placard and through WDFW to access them with motor vehicles. So these are generally areas that for one reason or another are closed to motor vehicle use for the general public. We authorize this just through a permit. It's available in our offices that you can go in and get and sign out the key. Actually, we're going to combos, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we're going away from the keys and going to combos. But we have a couple of different options. So Aladdin Mountain, west of Ione, north of Caldwell. You leave Caldwell going up toward like Deep Lake, you get to this area. Up in there are a number of routes. This one is available to anyone with that disabled placard. You just come to our offices. I would suggest the Kettle Falls office for this one, just because they're the ones that tend to focus in this area. But if you were to go to our Newport office or even our Caldwell office, they would be able to sign you in, give you a little piece of paper signed by someone on the forest. that gives you authority and authorization to drive back in these gates. That way, if anyone gives you a hard time, show them this piece of paper that says you're okay to be back there, and if they have any questions, the number is written on there, and they can call us, we'll straighten it out. These ones are done just in-house. Another one we have is Brewer Mountain outside of Chewelah, so up north of Chewelah Creek. I will say this one right here is going to see a lot of active management the next couple of years. It's part of what we call our Chewelah A to Z project. It's a long-term contract that we have with Boggan Brothers Lumber to do forest health and fuels reduction. This one here is going to have some management in it for the next 7 or 8 years, and it's scattered throughout that Chewelah area. What I will say is a lot of the focus of these projects that we've been doing recently is really to improve wildlife habitat. If you've been on the Colville National Forest, you know, we have, I kind of break it down into 2 things, wildlife like forage and cover. We have a lot of cover, not a lot of forage. We're hoping to rectify that by thinning the forest, bringing back a kind of healthy stand where we have an adequate amount of cover and an adequate amount of forage. But that one there is going to be in some management for a number of years. Another route we have is this one we call Squirrel Meadows. It is on the Ponderay Valley side. This one is this is probably the best one if you went into our Newport office to get access. These 3 that I just talked about are all a first come, first served basis. We don't manage the number of people that are back there, so you may come and sign out the combination, and you may run into other people that are also authorized to use these routes during that time. Like I said, first come, first serve. We don't really keep track of, we don't have a limit on the numbers.
And you have to register every year for this program.
You do have to come in, and what we're asking is that you register when you're going in there. It's just an opportunity for us to keep track of how many people are using them and how much. Not that it matters, but it helps us kind of understand, are we offering a program? Do we need that works for people? Do we need to change the way we are offering these authorizations or the way that we're putting this program out? Just by knowing. So yeah, every year when you come in on these 3, we would ask you to come in, get the authorization. It's good for the season, and then you'll get the combo. You will have to for sure come back because Ken and the volunteer folks change the combo every year. So the combo you have that last year isn't going to work this year, and the one you have this year won't work next year. So,
And that's just to keep people who haven't registered, but did the year before from getting a free pass this year, et cetera.
and maybe also people who don't fit that criteria that we're looking to offer this opportunity to, right? That combo gets out into the world. It's like a skeleton key to all of the gates. Once it gets out, everyone has it. I saw it.
On the combos, have you had complaints about trying to get into those with the?
We have, it's that Squirrel Meadows one, I think that's the most, and I've asked our engineering group to kind of come up with a better way to lock the gate. 2 things happen with the gate, right? If we make the lockbox so that it's somewhat tamper-proof, it's really hard for people to get into and work the combo. We make it really easy to work the combo. We go through a lot of locks because they get shut off, they get cut, they get any number of things. So that one, most of them are okay. That one at that Squirrel Meadows route's a little bit tricky. We're trying to figure out a better way to set that gate up. Hopefully this year we'll be able to do that.
We'll talk about companion hunters within the day, but the reason why it's tricky is you gotta lay on your back and look up into the box to dial combo on that one. So that's why it's important if you're a disabled person that you have somebody who can do that for you and spin the dial and get the gate open for you.
There is no real easy solution for this. Last year, when we were doing our clearing projects, we came up on a gate that was open, that should have been locked. And we even took pictures of this thing. Somebody, they just forget shooting the lock. They shot the whole big metal box around the lock until they could get in and get it open. And so, unfortunately, not everybody goes through our hunter ed course. Because our hunter ed course, we're pretty strong about, you know, what you're shooting at, what you're not, we're taking care of the resources out there. But you're always gonna have somebody that, well, I don't feel like following the rules, I went in there and.
You know, I mean, maybe this is a good opportunity. I can talk a little bit about road closures. And I know they're a hot button topic. Everyone wants to talk about them when we get, when you start talking about whether a road is open or closed in any of our projects. And it's a balance, right? We're trying to find this balance between access for people that want access from a motorized perspective, but also those people who don't, who want an area that they can drive up to and then go hike through without having that motorized access. We all know, I think, and not to get into Ken and others' wheelhouse here, but roads and traffic, motor vehicles is one of the kind of really key things that is problematic to wildlife. The more roads we have, the more access and more motor vehicles, the more problematic it can be for wildlife. So we're really looking to strike this balance of having roads out on the landscape that people can use to get in and get into the national forest and do the things they want to do. Have areas where there aren't roads for those that don't want to drive and want to have a little more of that solitude. But the other part, some of these gated roads are really about our ability as the Forest Service to appropriately manage the land. Right, we need roads for fire suppression. We need roads for search and rescue. We need roads for, you know, any number of things that are happening out there. And so we have roads that are closed and gated. That can be a bit of a challenge for us, really in messaging why those roads are still there and why they're gated. And trying to strike that balance between motorized access, non-motorized access, and access. So we also have 3 disabled hunter routes, disabled hunter areas on the forest that we work through WDF and W that are part of a lottery system. And so I think it starts in July, where a person can apply, put your name in for the drawing, and you get drawn in 7-day periods for use. The nice thing about these through the WDF and W lottery system is that you're the only one that will be back. So you're getting this, you're drawing this period of time to have a single access. We only allow those that have drawn during that period of time into these areas. So if you draw the first week of September, you'll show up at the office, whatever the most appropriate office is. That's all in the guide that you get as part of this. You'll get your validation from WDFW, get your authorization for us, and then you go out and you have that 7-day period to go and hunt in these areas. Betty Creek, which I think hopefully we'll keep lighting off the Kettle Crest this year, and we'll have a fire in there, and this one will be open. But this is a really good route. There's a lot of some really nice camping areas, dispersed camp. There's no facilities there, but good dispersed camping areas. Some pretty good motorized access down a few of these roads into what I think is some pretty good hunting country. That's part of our, that's part of this raw lottery system. Another one is off in Republic. So you go to the Republic office for this one up on Boundary Mountain. Same thing, it's a part of this lottery, it's part of the draw system, and you'll have that use for that week period of time that you've drawn. I do want to make sure, though, that we're really clear what that means. What I just said of you'll have that exclusive is you will be the only one that can drive back there during that period of time. That doesn't mean that someone who's really pounding ground isn't going to come wandering through your hunting area, right? It's public land, it's open to the public, anyone may show up, but it should be restricted to that motorized access just for the individual who's drawn that hunt for that time period.
One added benefit of Boundary Mountain is when you get to the very top, you got a great view of Grand Forks, British Columbia.
I have to say I haven't been there, but looking at the map, that's probably a pretty cool area too.
Yes.
And then the last one of these is also out of Chewelah up on Mitchell Mountain. This will be another one that's going to be a part of that ongoing vegetation management project, that Chewelah AZ project for a while. We are really working with Chewelah, with the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and with Stevens County to try to find a way to highlight for people where that activity is occurring, where that management is at. Early on, we're trying to come up with a plan for the next few years so people can estimate, like, do I want to put in and draw Mitchell Mountain? Maybe not this year because we're going to have a timber sale going on in there, but maybe next year it'll be better. And so we're trying to get that out. We'll be communicating, figure out ways to really get that message out far and wide once we kind of get a sense of where that work is going to.
We'll talk about that when we get to watch one stuff. It's-
Don't you have one up by Sherry Creek too? Off of Highway 20?
Yeah, but that's not ours.
Oh,
Yeah, that is part of the road access entry.
road
program.
access program. Yeah,
Isn't that one that you have to be drawn for?
Yes. And we don't have anything to do with that part, with that area. That's not part of the, is that, I don't think that's national forest.
I don't think so.
I think that's state land or.
I think so. I think it's state. So, yeah, this is a little more, I think this is broad, it's pretty much to the road access entry program overall. A couple of things to know specifically, and I think this is true of all of those lottery, areas. It's modern, archery, modern, big game season. It's what we have set these aside for. I know that there are other things that people hunt, but these ones here, we really tried to keep just because it's a fair bit of work for our folks to keep on top of it, if it goes throughout the year. And so we've kind of kept that to the big game seasons, starting usually in September and going through the end of your ability to access, right? It's snow at some point, you have to be able to get in there. And so that's about the end. Yeah,
Most of your ADA access areas also no phone zones. So if they have a medical emergency, there's no way they can call for help.
So I don't know about that one up Ruby Creek. The Mitchell Mountain and Brewer Mountain. You probably have cell phone coverage in there. Betty Creek mostly would have cell phone coverage in there. Boundary Mountain, the Squirrel Meadows and that Aladdin Road, the Aladdin Mountain ones would be pretty tough. If all you had was a cell phone. Everywhere on the Colville National Forest, if you have a spot device or what is the new, the Garmin InReach, any of those, there are access all across the forest, but there are definitely some of those places. And like I said, I think Aladdin and Brewer Mountain specifically might be pretty tough cell coverage.
One of the things about that is this is actually where there's an advantage for a person with a disability, because if you pay attention and you've got a good companion hunter, which we'll talk a little bit more later, you actually have somebody that should be capable of either getting you out of that area to help, or, if it's one of those things, I'm rolling and all of a sudden I go over the edge of somewhere and I'm down in a valley somewhere. If my wife is my companion hunter, she can go get help, or she can go get a signal to where there's a signal, those kinds of things. Whereas when I was able-bodied, I'd go up into the mountains by myself. Something happens and there's no signal, then I'm in trouble. So there's an advantage there of having that good companion hunter. The other side of that is in hunter ed during survival class, we talk about how do you prepare? Doing things like making sure people know where you're at, know when you're supposed to be back. I talked about how to set up where you park, put something that shows which direction you were planning on going. Those little things like that can make a big difference for, wait a minute. Let's say he was gonna be back by 4 o'clock and it's 8 o'clock. Where is it? Let's go look.
I thought I saw,
On that last slide, it said archery and modern. Does that include muzzleloader?
it does. Okay, yeah, all of, basically, we started at the beginning of archery, early archery, and go until you just can't access it anymore. The road access entry program, which is that partnership with where we have, set these routes aside for the lottery ends at some point. And in the past, when we've had, access into those areas and the lottery draw has ended, we'll just revert those back to our regular program. So for example, like the Betty Creek route, usually the last draw occurs sometime in early November. A couple of years, we've had access into that area past that, and you just come into the office and we'll just give you our regular permit. We'll shift out of that lottery system and into our regular program, which is then that first come, first serve, where we're not gonna manage the number of people. I have always thought of that of like, if you can get in there, why not get? Of course, the last couple of years, early snow has kept that, the lottery program has gone farther than the action allowed.
And all this is available on the computer?
Yeah, you can find.
Yes.
The road access entry program, you can find through the fishing game's website.
Uh-huh.
Then when you get there, look for, just type in, it'll show road access. In fact, I'll cover them in the first slides when Josh is done. But each area will be different as to how many people it will allow during a specified calendar week or month. Some will say 2 during modern firearm, 2 during archery, some will say 4. But each one's different, and then depending on which one you want to go to will determine. And they got a book for it. They've got it all online. The application period starts June 1st and then July 31st. And you will be notified sometime around the end of the first week of August whether you drew or not. If you didn't get drawn, they're not going to tell you. You're not going to get a notification saying, sorry, maybe next time. And there's some options that you presented to the commission at March's meeting that maybe I'll let you talk about later.
So when that happens, I mean, if you're curious and you didn't hear anything, we also, all of our offices, so our office in Newport, in Colville, Kettle Falls, Republic, all will get that notification too. And if you didn't hear anything and you call up the office and you ask, they'll tell you whether you're on the list or not. So that part of the program, the lottery, the road access entry program, that is available online. Those other 3 opportunities that we have, Aladdin, Mitchell Mountain and Squirrel Meadows are not available online. You just have to come into one of our offices. You know, depends on who you get on the phone and what they have going on at the moment. We send stuff through email and that kind of stuff. We would prefer people would come in. It's just a little easier to kind of have that conversation, but we get that that's not always feasible. So we've done a few other things as well. So yeah, through the volunteer with the wildlife count, with Wildlife Council, we have really started to, and I only offer this up as just a cautionary note. They've been doing patrols of the routes in the spring, kind of identifying where work needs to be done, trees that have fallen across the road, that kind of stuff. And where it is within the capability of the group, they're in there cutting trees and clearing brush and things like that. What we have is some contacts for the folks that are doing that. If you get to a tree that's too big and you can't get it out of the way, or it's beyond what you feel comfortable, we can round up someone from our fire crew and we'll send them out there and they'll do some of those larger, kind of more complex tree clearing and falling issues if need be. And then I know you all have been going back in at the end of the summer, kind of before the season starts, just to check again. No guarantee though that sometime between that day, that last day of that quick survey that happens and your actual hunt, that some tree hasn't fallen over the road. You can try to call us if you are out there and you're like, hey, this tree is really blocking our path. Depending on what's going on, we might be able to rally up a few folks, but that tends to happen around fire season, and most of our people that have the ability to manage chainsaws and do that kind of work are generally awful busy come end of August, first part of September. But if you call us, we can give it a shot, see if we can get someone out there to clear that out. But just know that you may get up there and there may be a tree across. We've tried to do what we can early in the season to get them cleared out, to get them ready.
One of the things, can go back one slide. Down here at the bottom, near the bottom, where it says, however, if you're a winning applicant, there's no preseason scouting law. It's one of the things that I presented to commission in March. wait a minute. Anybody else, any able-bodied hunter can go in and be scouting because it's public land, right? So to not be able to go in because I'm a hunter with a disability gives me a disadvantage. And the commission seemed very open to, we need to listen to this and think about it because this same reason. If I'm able to go in there 2 weeks before the season just to scout, that's when I can find out, you know what, there's this huge tree down that my chainsaw isn't gonna cut. It's gonna give these other crews a chance to reach out to them and say, hey, I can't get into that access. Boom, we've got somebody maybe next weekend before season starts.
So I'm very interested in the result of that conversation, where we land, because one of the challenges we've had, right, is, the authorization to access these roads with motor vehicles. So outside of the road access entry program and just into the other piece of the Caldwell National Forest program, you could get in and scout unless you're trying to hunt opening day of archery season. Because there's a pretty hard limit on like when we're gonna allow people in. If you think about August, pretty careful about a road that hasn't been bladed, that might have a lot of grass and stuff growing over it. We're pretty hesitant to let people in there with a motor vehicle or a four-wheeler in August during high fire danger. So we try to restrict that. The road access entry program has been an issue for scouting in that if you want to go in a week early and scout, there's someone else in there hunting. And so it's been this challenge of how do we balance the person that's having their hunt with your need and desire to scout. So I'm super interested in where that ends up. That'd be definitely something that's been a challenge for us, and we're totally willing to kind of shift the way we do things to try to meet that need, because there's nothing better than preseason scouting, right? But we also want to make sure that we're not interfering with someone else's opportunity in there as they're hunting too, so.
And the route patrol program that we conduct for the Forest Service has been very good for us too, because it gives us an opportunity to give back and help other hunters with disabilities. And we schedule them in such a way that, for instance, May 19th, 20th, we're going in to take care of Brewer Mountain and Mitchell Mountain. They're so close together in the same valley. We do those first because they're at a lower elevation, the snow is gone, and the roads are firm enough. You can get a full-size truck in there without causing ruts. It's dry enough. And then several weeks later, we'll go up and take care of Ladin Mountain and Coral Meadows. They're fairly close geographically. But Betty Creek, we gotta wait till the second week of July, because it doesn't get a lot of direct sunlight, and you can leave ruts real easy, even with a side-by-side or ATV. So we don't want to do that in the forest. We want to leave the roads with as much integrity as when we found them. And we also look at other things while we're doing this. We pick up garbage along the way. You'd be surprised how many guys just toss a beer can outside their truck and just forget about it. We go in, we want to, part of our ethic is leave the forest better than you found it. And I hope that's the way for every responsible hunter. So we always take extra plastic bags with us, and then we haul it home, just like all our other garbage. So if you guys want to help take part of this, you got friends who want to volunteer and help us on these projects, we don't turn help away at all. I don't care if we're only doing one round, we got 20 people. Great, let's attack this thing. We'll be done that much quicker. And then
We help feed you too.
Yes, if there's food, we're gonna beat it, right? All right.
So you can see on this slide, this, just a little overview of the 6 different, road access routes on the Caldwell National Forest. Right, you can see Brewer Mountain is kind of a shorter one, Betty Creek's kind of a longer one, as far as miles of roads. I'm gonna be honest that there are, platforms in some of these, but maybe not all of these, and I'm not 100% sure I know where they are, because I've kind of just told Ken to put them where they need to go, and so I don't really know exactly where all of them are, but I know that's been a big focus, is trying to find those places where we can put a platform that's ADA accessible and give that opportunity for people who are less mobile. Like I said, some of them you've been on the Colville, it's pretty thick. Some of them I look at, and it's like, that was the only place to put the platform, but you don't get to see very far. But with a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, some of these areas are starting to open up, and a few of the pictures that I've seen of some of these platforms, you're a pretty good shot out there,
Yeah.
a pretty good distance if you happen to see an animal come by, so.
And 2 years ago, we pulled 2 platforms off of Betty Creek because number one, the ground cover has got to a point where you didn't have shooting lane. And we don't have the authority to go in there and cut shooting lanes out. But fire we had the last 2 years, I think has opened up some shooting lanes. We're gonna look at 2 more platforms back on Betty Creek this summer.
I think that's a great idea. I was up, we had a fire last year called the Alligator Ridge Fire. Really low, moderate severity fire. I mean, exactly what you would think. It took care of a lot of the brush. We had some heavy equipment in there opening up and brushing out roadsides, and I was up on a lot of those roads in that Betty Creek route. And the fires opened up a lot. It didn't burn real hot, so there's not a ton of dead trees, didn't scorch out the ground, maybe just cleaned up a little bit. That one up there, I think for the next couple of years, due to those last couple of wildfires, can be a really, really prime area. That's probably got some potential for reinstalling those platforms. That might be the end of my.
Yeah.
So, questions, I'm happy to spend a couple of minutes with anyone has questions or thoughts, or have used these and have ideas. I mean, that's the other thing too. Things that we might do differently. I would also ask if you're using the routes out there on the Colville National Forest, and you think of something that might make it better or something that you can look to address. You can always reach out to the forest. You can always reach out to me, reach out through Ken or Z or anyone else, and we'll have that conversation. There's opportunity, I think, for us to modify and change things to make them work better.
With the new bike access, you got your bikes and that sort of thing, how you handle it then?
So, e-bikes. So, somehow, an e-bike, by the US Forest Service definition is a motor vehicle. And so e-bikes should only be, doesn't mean that they aren't, right? Where they're not supposed to be, but e-bikes should only be where other motor vehicles are authorized to be. We shouldn't have e-bikes back on these road access entry program routes unless one of you is riding, or someone who has authorization
Right.
through that program is riding an e-bike. Of course, that doesn't mean, but that's, I mean, we see full-size pickups where we don't want them, and e-bikes and other places, but e-bikes are technically considered a motor vehicle. They should be treated as such, and then therefore they need to be, they are supposed to only be where motor vehicles are authorized. If you're curious about that, the National Forest System thing, National Forest System has a thing called the Motor Vehicle Use Map. They're available on our websites. They're available at most of our offices for free if you prefer a hard copy map. If you use what's the program? Onyx? Not Onyx. It'll come to me. If you use your smartphone or electronics, I'd say Vista, but that's not it. Anyway, you can download them for free as well if you use electronics to kind of keep track of where you are. Motor Vehicle Use Map shows open roads. So it doesn't, the challenge with the Motor Vehicle Use Map is it doesn't show all the roads. It only shows roads that are open. So as a navigation tool, it's a little bit tricky because it may not show that road that you're looking at because it only shows roads that are open to motor vehicles. On the Colville National Forest, we have another thing that we're calling the Forest Visitor Use Map. It comes with a firewood authorization. It's probably, in my mind, it's a better map than the Motor Vehicle Use Map because it shows more detail and has more, has a better legend and shows more of the on the ground. It comes every time you get a firewood authorization from the forest, you get a Forest Visitor Use Map. I would say that whether you get firewood or not, you should just go get the firewood authorization to get the map. Firewood authorizations are free. personal use firewood on the Colville is free, up to 12 quarts a year. So you just go grab a firewood authorization. It comes with the map. And that forest visitor use map is a pretty good map. Those are available outside, kind of in a little cubby of every one of our offices. So if you're through on a Saturday and office is closed, you should be able to just grab one and move on. You'll get a map and then the authorization as well.
And does that show these roads that are open for the disabled use access?
It does not. It does not. We have another map that when you're coming in specific to the disabled use and road access entry, that you can get those maps. Yes, sir.
We live in Colville. And not too far from us, there's a drug dealer, and they go out 1 o'clock in the morning, they come back with a pickup full of wood that they're selling. Is there any way we can get them turned in, because they're stealing?
Yes. If you wanted to, I don't have business cards, or I'd hand you one of mine. But if you were to take a quick look at our website, there is a general email address. I actually think it's, well, yeah, Colville National Forest at USDA.gov, I think. But you can just look and you can click it, send us an email. We have a new law enforcement officer. So we've added to our capacity around law enforcement on the forest. And if you were to send us a quick email about that, someone is checking that every morning. It's their job, and we will route that to law enforcement and they will take a look.
Can I just go into the Colville office and tell them?
Most certainly can. Yeah, if you go in there, Ralph works the front desk. If you talk to Ralph, he'll take that down and make sure that we get that information to our law enforcement.
Wonderful.
With that being said, I need to bring up another topic. Hopefully it doesn't repeat itself. Last Memorial Day weekend, we had an incident on Aladdin Mountain. We had a bunch of drunken disorderlies camped in front of the gate on one of the 3 routes. You know, the 3, not the top one, 330, on the 330 road. And our guys identified themselves as volunteers for the Forest Service from the Wildlife Council. They just need to get behind the gate and help clear the route. And safe to say, an altercation took place. And a handgun was produced. And now that person is being prosecuted by the Poundland County.
Good.
So if you come across trying to get to a certain route and you see an incident like that, please don't confront them. It's not worth your life. It's not worth, losing a day of hunting there. Find another spot. Take down as much information as you can, turn it into the sheriff's office, or call the Forest Service office, and they'll take care of it from there. But we don't want anybody to get injured because they confronted somebody for doing, I think you know what I'm trying to say.
It's not completely unheard of, whether you're a volunteer or you're just using one of these opportunities in this road access entry program for other people to be upset that you're doing something they can't. There's a phone number on your authorization. Please give that to them and have them call us. I am happy to talk to people about that kind of stuff, like what happened last year. We were able to get our law enforcement, Stevens County Sheriff, Monterey County Sheriff involved really quick. I mean, thank you to the folks that did the right thing. Sometimes the better part of valor is walking away, and that happened, and we averted something more serious, but we were able to get Sheriff's Department and law enforcement involved pretty quick, and hopefully we averted most of what could have been a bad situation. Yes, ma'am.
Best tool you can use is your cell phone on taking pictures. That documents it, and they appreciate that greatly.
Yes,
Oh, that area is really gated. Is there, if there's a problem with the gate where I can't get in? Is there an area where you turn around closely
I'll let maybe
Yeah.
Ken's seen them.
Yeah.
or just park and call somebody and then I'll walk in further myself until that situation?
On the 3 open routes where it's not a lottery, just the Aladdin Mountain, Brewer Mountain, and Squirrel Meadows, there's plenty of room there if you get to the gate and there's something wrong with it, or there's a lock that's, the combination isn't working, then there's plenty of room to back out and turn around, or within a short distance without having to back too far.
Okay.
On all three of those.
Yeah.
The road access routes are pretty much the same way. It's not just a two-road, it's a two-road trail beyond the gate usually. But on the front side of the gate, there's room to turn around, if not back out to a safe place to turn.
Yep, and you can give us a call. We will attempt, depending on what's going on, and you happens to be around the office that day. We've done that before where we even loaded someone up 2 years ago with we have a vehicle's got a portable welder. We went up, we got some stuff and fixed the gate, but no guarantee we can always do that. My only ask is that we try to find that area where you're out of the way, especially on those more open routes, because someone else may be coming in. We don't want to block that. And if something happens behind that gate that we need in for fire suppression or search and rescue or whatever. Yeah. So there should be, I know one of them, is it Mitchell Mountain? One of them is kind of tricky, and I think we've been looking for a better place to put the gate. We just haven't found the right spot yet.
Of all the places that Ken and I have gone, Ken's got an F-250, I've got an F-350, and I would say probably most 50 feet or so, the most we've ever had to back up to be able to get a good turnaround. You're gonna have people that need a 47-20 turn to get turned around and cul-de-sac, okay? But generally speaking, you know, if you're in those areas, hopefully you're skilled enough that you're driving to, you know, be able to get back around it. And then going back to some of the other things, it doesn't matter what it is. It might be somebody that is doing something they shouldn't be doing. It might be an issue that you see. It could be an emergency, whatever. You may not have the right number at the right time, but that's why we collaborate with the different agencies. Feel free to call here, to call force, call one or, you know, the first person you can think about that is in this coordination, get a hold of us. And we know how to get a hold of the others, which is exactly what we do.
Overall,
Go ahead, Andy.
well, overall, we've had a great working relationship with the Colorado National Forest. And in turn, because we've been very respectful of the instructions they've given us the freedom to go in there and do these route patrols without any strings attached. And if we get to a gate where we think maybe the gate should be in a better place, we take note of it. If the gate is missing a lock when we get there, we take note of that and we let him know. We send him a report at the end of each project so he can let his people know out in the field. And usually within just a very short time, whatever maintenance or repairs we get taken care of before we have to go in next time.
With the locks this year, I think we started this last year, right? And we buy a number of them.
Yeah.
And gave them to you.
Yeah, so the locks we put on last year were much better than the ones before. The ones we put on the year before looked like a TSA lock that could be cut off with a pair of fingernail clippers. But these are much better locks now. And when we go up the first phase one during the spring, early summer to do these route patrols, that's when we change the combination on locks. And then it's my job to let him know ahead of time what the number's being changed to, so that he can put it out to the public office, the Newport office, et cetera, so that they can take care of that on their reports when they give people permission to hunt behind the gate. The road access entry program, all three of those will have separate numbers. But those first three will have common numbers, so once you get permission, you can go in any of those three locations.
There is a program through the Master Hunter called Eyes in the Woods,
Yes, I've heard that.
and it's a very good class. It takes maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it's an excellent class. Okay. And it basically covers everything that you're talking about there. What to do, what not to do. And also, when you guys go into these roads, is that part of the Master Hunter program, where you use those for your hours?
If you volunteer for one of our projects like that, yes, that counts towards your master hunter,
Okay.
including fishing programs, like
Okay.
the kids fishing day coming up, that counts towards your master hunter.
Okay.
We're always looking for volunteers.
Gotcha.
Pretty much any program that the Wildlife Council is doing, on a project that we do, is going to be able to count for your master hunter.
Okay.
Okay,
Did you have a question, sir, there?
He already answered it.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand.
Are all the combination numbers the same? You said 3 of them are.
3 of them are, yeah. Aladdin Mountain, Brewer Mountain, and Squirrel Meadows will have the same combination. The other 3 that are road access entry program pieces, those will all each have their own separate combination. Used to be, once you got, if you got drawn for the program, about a week before opening, they would send you the placard to put on the dash of your vehicle and the key for the lock. Well, these 3 don't require a key, it's a combination, but you're only gonna get it if you get drawn for that specific game.
Yeah, and those ones are separate, just for that specific purpose of, giving a little more specific opportunity through the road access entry program, to individuals. So trying to make sure that if you draw a week in Betty Creek, you should have an expectation, and you should get that week of motorized access and hunting opportunity to yourself and not have a bunch of other people driving up and down the road. We manage the combos as much as we can to get out and things happen, but as much as we can, we try to do that.
The orange placards, I know they don't issue them anymore. They're like a piece of gold. That identified, your disabled hunters out in the woods. They did away with that probably because of money.
Yes, they got rid of that program because the ADA office in Olympia at that time had 3 different funding sources. When one dried up or went to somewhere else, she had to make some budget cuts, and that plastic placard was a very easy thing to cut. Because now it's on your license. When you get that paper printout, it'll say disability endorsement. So if you run into the woods and you don't have an orange placard from prior, then that's your only identification to somebody who's gonna confront you for driving behind the gate. Just very quiet, show them you're a disabled hunter. And that should be, but if you were part of the old program and you still have that orange placard, by all means, use it as a source of identification.
The other reason that they moved away from that, we were finding out that people that had gotten into there, they were misusing that opportunity. And so what they did was they got tired with the qualifying, the qualifiers to be able to get those programs. They really limited more to mobility disabilities as opposed to any disability. Because there were people that are totally capable of being able to walk into places, and they were taking the opportunities from those who can't. So it was a combination of different things. It's the government. If they need to change something, they're gonna change it, but it's gonna take longer. If they don't need to change it, they're gonna change it right away. So.
Yes, 100%. I totally agree.
Special needs program, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes.
Well, and so what we need when we're issuing that authorization, that is the thing on the Colville National Forest. It's a piece of paper that says you are authorized by signatory, whoever is authorized to sign this thing, to have your vehicle on this road. And so what we would ask for is that, just to take a look at your hunting license and see that that you have that endorsement, and then we would issue that to you. That road authorization is the thing that has, that's going to get you out of trouble if someone from law enforcement comes and is asking you questions. All of our law enforcement officers are fully aware of this program and understand what it is and what it's about, how it works. Generally, they're probably not asking too many questions in the middle of your hunt. At least that's what it's been in the past, so. Okay. Any last, yes, sir.
One thing I was wondering, if you got your disabled hunter and then your companion, is that limited to those 2 during the whole time, or are there more people allowed, like during the drawing where you got 7 days, you said there's a camping opportunity?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to bring more people to that camping?
So you could come and camp, so the camping opportunities are generally outside of the route, right? So at least like on Betty Creek, where a lot of people do that, is the better places you can. I would suggest you can camp at the gate or just prior to the gate, and then your hunt would go back in. And you have as many, I mean, I don't want to say it's unmanaged, but dispersed camping is, if you do that, where.
What about for disabled hunter and the actual hunting process? Could you have 3 people go or 2? Or
That's a
just,
good
I mean,
question. I'm not
It
sure.
depends on the hunt for the road access. Some areas will allow you to, and depending on the species, a lot of times if it's deer, you're gonna be able to have one other person go in there with you. And that person has to also be a licensed hunter. There are different hunts that, for elk, that you're allowed to have 2 people with you. One has to be a licensed hunter, the other one might just be the goat. Guy that's really gonna be grunt work if you're successful on a hunt,
sure.
helping to haul that, that animal.
Way down in the canyon could be a problem.
Yeah, so, it probably, and I'll only speak right now just for the Colville National Forest, just for Forest Service lands, it's really about the vehicles. You have 1 vehicle and have 4 people that are out there to hunt with you, but
It's just
honestly, I just don't care. I just don't care, right? It's the vehicle that's it's the concern more than anything. So we're really authorizing your vehicle behind that.
So the hunting season for the disabled person would be done. It's all the same thing.
It's for us, it's really about the mobility, the vehicle access. What we wouldn't want is, me and 7 friends all under one disabled access, and all have our own ATV.
No.
We're tearing around, but 3 or 4 people in a pickup truck, it's really, to me, it's really about the vehicle itself and not so much. Because it seems funny to me that I would be like, you can drive back in, but you and I we're gonna have to walk, right? Like, what difference does it make? So it's really.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was more thinking like he said, the pack out.
Yeah.
Especially if you got somebody that can't walk. Or has a lot of trouble with it, they're not gonna be able to.
Right.
Do much.
Yeah.
That's that's where the hunt starts, as soon as you shoot it.
That's where you say, I like the hunting.
The beach.
No, I'm with you. It's really about that vehicle. So if you need a couple other people are gonna, ride in a truck with you as you go back in there, there's nothing wrong with that.
Anytime I have drawn a road access entry program, this says specifically during opening days when I can first go in, I'm allowed to take 1 person with me, my hunting companion. If I see something down and I need help retrieving it, then I can assist up to 4 other people.
Okay.
But it'll say whatever that number is, determine on the area you're at, and it'll all say it's black and white right there on the package on the 17 picture. Okay. Any other questions for Josh?
Okay, well, thanks.
Thanks, brother.
If you're interested in hunting out there, good luck.
Who needs a break? Keep going or? All right, we'll keep going. All right. Every organization I've ever been part of has always had a mission statement, right? And Inland Northwest Wildlife Council is no different. But on top of that, our team here also has this, working to provide access and opportunities for all sportsmen and women with disabilities. Okay, that's exactly what we do. It doesn't matter, during the route patrols, that's what we're doing, providing access for them. Part of that access is then filling out the paperwork and getting into the system as a sportsman with disabilities. The other part of that is the opportunities. We clear all that winter deadfall out on his, for Josh and his crews. And if we get to something that's too big for our saws to cut, we simply send him, give him a phone call, or if we pass a fire team on the road while we're out there, we just let them know. There's at least 1 sawyer on every fire team. And if you don't know what a sawyer is, a person who's certified to use that chainsaw on big stuff. And they have different levels from whatever, that's not important. But Rich and I went up Squirrel Meadows a couple of years ago, and as soon as we got through the gate and across the bridge, went up around the corner, and all these trees had fallen over from the top. We can't get up there, and it's not gonna help anything by cutting the bottom half. So we turned around and just spent the day in the woods, going somewhere else, just rubbernecking. In the meantime, he sent a fire team out there, got them cut, Next time we went up, road's clear. But if you get out there, for instance, and Joe can talk about, because I think this is how Joe and I got connected. 2 years ago, right after modern deer firearm season, I went into Aladdin Mountain and I went through all 3 routes, cut down all the deadfall that happened since the last time I was there. And then I went to elk camp. Well, while I'm at elk camp, Josh's assistant, Eric, sends me an email saying, hey, we had somebody, they couldn't get in, and right there at the gate on Aladdin, like, well, I just cut all that stuff. I think it was Joe, and you had a son-in-law with you?
Well, and my brother, but it was
Yeah.
early buck season.
Yeah, but, and like Josh had just said, just because I cut it down on Monday, doesn't mean there won't be something that fell on Tuesday. So anytime you run into any of that, please, just give the Forest Service a call, give us a call, let us know, we might be able to get up there before they can. Doesn't mean we will, just means we know about it and we'll try and get it taken care of. Okay? All right. Anything you want to add to this?
Communication, that's probably the biggest thing. You've heard us already talk quite a bit about it. Don't be afraid to make a phone call and say, hey, I saw something. Hey, I've got a question. Hey, how do I do this? That's what we really want to do. That's what we really try to collaborate the most with, is that sharing of information is how we're able to get more things done and know what else needs to be done.
And ma'am, your question earlier about dead zones for cell phone, anytime you're up there, keep an eye on your phone, let you know where there's a good signal and where there's not.
Yes.
So in case you have them, you know exactly where to backtrack to, so you can call and get some help.
The other side of that, and when, before I was in the chair, when I would go hunting by myself, I was in a lot of places that had very little service. And my wife always wanted to know where I was. I would always make sure I knew where high points were. Get up to a high point, get up to a, top of a ridge or whatever. Bingo, hold your phone up, you got a signal usually. If nothing else, at least for a text message. So those are things. You have a question?
Yeah, I did. It went south. We got CRS.
Not only high zones, but you also have no, dead zones down on lake fronts because you're down in both.
Right.
And that's often where you'll come across your dead zone.
Right.
I would love to say just one more thing about this. Something happens to you while you're back there and you don't have a cell signal, don't ever go to the mountains not prepared.
Correct.
Okay, I remember.
Right.
One place that they were talking about, you could overlook Canada, Grand Forks, right? One thing you have to be careful for is that you're not getting the signal from Canada, because you're going to be charged extra, like on my phone.
And there have been several times we've been in the woods and we got so close to the Canadian border, like up on Boundary Mountain, that all of a sudden we got a welcome to British Columbia hanging from.
Right. Phones go off.
It doesn't mean you're there, but if it's a signal and you got, that's your place, then if you're an emergency, why not pay the roaming fees?
Right. So I looked it up. I said there was a program you could download to get maps stuff, Avenza, that's what I was trying to come up with. So if you download Avenza maps, you can, one, purchase maps, but there are a lot of things that are available for free. And some of the national forest maps are available on Avenza. The nice thing about the motor vehicle use map through Avenza is they are something called geo-reference. And it will show you on the map, you can look at your phone and see, oh, I'm right there. And you can kind of see as you move around. So there are some maps that are geo-referenced that you can download and you'll be able to see right on your phone. And you don't need service in order to use them most of the time. You would need service to download them, but once you have them downloaded, you use them when you're not connected to the network. Avenza maps. I just wanted to, it would come.
As good a resource as Onyx is, you don't always have satellite coverage. And it won't always update the maps and give you all the terrain, especially if you try to zoom in, unless you pay for part of the subscription. The free part also comes with a lot of ads. But the nice thing about it is you can download the area you're going to ahead of time It'll save it on your phone, and then it's just like you got real-time service. You can zoom in, zoom out, and still add waypoints and look up stuff.
It's important that you do those offline maps prior
Yeah.
to going in the woods.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And when I said be prepared, always have a first aid kit, always have water, snack or something. In my side by side, I got a 5-gallon bucket and under the passenger seat, I got one in the back with an extra axe with a Pulaski, rope, extra tow strap. Maybe I need to be pulled out, maybe I can help pull somebody else out. But I also got a first aid kit that I'm a former firefighter, that's something you'll never go without. So if you're bleeding really bad, I'm just gonna stop the bleeding and get you out of there.
Nice, it's my truck, goes with me.
Yeah. Your body's leaking something, we're just gonna put the cork in it and get you evacuated, so easy as possible, okay?
Back to the coverage on things. When Ken and I go out, we almost always, one of us will have Onyx Hunt, one of us will have something else, whatever it might be for that area. So if you're double teaming on that, one may be taking a little longer to get downloaded or opening up, but the other one is there a little quicker and bouncing back and forth. So there's a lot of times when especially when we're scouting for potential places for another platform, that's where we can really look at things and then we start marking them on our phones and things like that.
So in other words, I should make sure when I go, that I have somebody with a smartphone, because I don't.
Yes.
Here's the other thing, technology will fail you at some point someday. Don't be afraid to find out how to use a compass
Oh, I know.
and a map,
Okay.
okay? And share it, or teach somebody else how to use it.
And an actual map.
Yeah, pull out top, everywhere we go, I got a topo map for it somewhere. My wife will probably tell you I'm not because I collect topographic maps. And that's another story I'll tell some other day. All right, let's move on. All right, here's a definition of a person with a disability. Notice they didn't say disabled person. Permanent is going to have a permanent physical, visual, or developmental disability which substantially impairs their ability to participate in recreational activities or access department lands. That's their definition, and that's what they base how they qualified you, whether you're going to be in the system or not. All right. So when you get your application form and you take it to the doctor, and he's got to check off a box that says permanent upper extremity, permanent lower extremity, or permanent visual or cognitive disability. And then you'll get once he signs it, you send the form into Olympia, and within a short time, you're gonna get, they may not send you something or send you an email telling you, okay, you're in the system. You're gonna have to log into the system and see if it's there. Okay, like I said, they don't give the orange placards anymore. So you have to log into your account on, what's the name of that website, Kevin?
Our website.
Yeah, not this website where they buy their stuff. Can't remember the name. Anyway, one of the first things you'll see on the left-hand column of the page you go to when you want to buy your license online, it'll give you your endorsements already on there. And it'll say disabled. It just shows up automatically, and that's when you'll find out that, yeah, you got into the system. Okay? Now, if you're one of those people that did get notified by phone or by email, wow. Buy a lottery ticket for me, would you? All right.
On this part here, when you're talking with your doctor, have him write something that's specific to you, just because you have shoulder rebuild. Like I was saying earlier, someone else with a T10 incomplete para, like me, probably has different symptoms, different things they're able to do, different things they're not able to do. Have your doctor write down specifically barriers that you have. That's going to help you in any situation where Fish and Wildlife comes back and says, well, sorry, you didn't qualify. Then if you're going to go in and you want to appeal that decision, you've got very substantial information from your physician that lets them know why. And it's one of those things I was telling someone a little bit earlier. Fish and Wildlife has been a lot more open to how do we make these things right. And so there's different processes for the appeals process. There's been a lot of turnover there, and right now, they're starting to go, wait a minute, we can narrow this down, we can make this easier so that a person has, an appeal on that decision. They know who to talk to, they know what to bring to the table, those kinds of things.
Okay, you're talking about the wild system. I thought you meant something specific.
No, the wild system, thank you. All right. Here's the web address you go to get started. www, you all know what that stands for, wdfw.wa.gov/accessibility. If you spell it wrong, you're not gonna get there. Trust me. I found. This is what that page will look like when you go there. This is the top half of the page, and you can click on what their values are, and it'll take you to another spot and read that. But come back to this, because at the bottom half of this page, you're gonna have these options. And this is, you can click on all of these to get more information. Diversity, civil rights, and accessibility will take you to a page where you can find out who the ADA advisory committee is that Steve and I sit on, as well as how to get an application for the Inland Empire Paper Company on it. The link for that is on that page as well. This is that page. Click on ADA Advisory Committee. It tells you who we are, what we do, who we represent. And there's where the states broke up into different regions. I represent Region 1. You can see all the different counties. Some of them I haven't been to yet. Always be aware of the change that fishing game makes, especially the rules, either fishing or hunting. Don't just look at the published rule. Go to the website, find out what some of the rule changes have been since the pamphlet was published. That's your responsibility as a sportsman. Sometimes those changes were made because of science or what might be some other reason there, Kevin?
Just like public pressure, sometimes will be why things change, sometimes due to like changes on the forest, if there's wildfires that need to close their areas, be a lot of different things.
Sometimes you get a different restrictions in the forest. I mean, what are we at right now?
Right now, we are at no restriction.
No restriction. And sometimes if you go out there and maybe a food owl restriction.
So think about, there's two different restrictions that the Forest Service will use. One is what they call the industrial fire precaution level. That's going to be more if you're, looking for firewood or you're a contractor. But somehow chainsaw use has become part of the industrial fire precaution level. So firewood and stuff is under that one. And then we have the PERS, public use restriction, that will go through different levels. Right now, we're at a level. Right now, we're not at a level, right? It's spring, but we'll go into some levels where, fire in designated campgrounds with designated fire rings. Go to no fire where you can only use the light gas powered stove. There's some restrictions on generators and where you can and can't drive. And rarely, it's a huge step. We'll go into public use restriction level 4, which is a forest enclosure. And 2015 was the last time that we've done that. And you all remember 2015 fire season. That's where we've got conditions that are so poor that, any little bit of heat and or spark or something can spark a wildfire. It's a huge and very drastic step that we take rarely. Usually we'll get into that campfires and designated fire rings by, August. We'll be there for a week or 2 weeks, and by September, we're back out of this.
And those apply to us too when we're in there doing route patrols, clearing deadfall. If there's a hoot owl restriction in place, there could be from 8 p.m. at night to 1 p.m. the following day. It's the only time you can cut. But then you got to stick in that area for an hour, make sure it didn't start fires. And that affects how much work we can get done in a day, but it's to the benefit of the forest and people who might need it later. So we abide by those restrictions just like everybody else does.
Definitely about, we have enough lightning and natural cause wildfires. We don't really want to add human cause wildfires at the top of that. Nobody, spend a lot of time in fire management. Nobody wants to be responsible for a large wildfire. You've never seen the bill for one of those. Whatever you're imagining, there's more zeros behind. You don't want to be the one that has to pay the bill. That's what those are really about, is trying to minimize that chance of wildfire.
Going back to paying attention to any potential changes a couple years ago, I had a road access hunt that I had drawn. Hunt was supposed to start on Saturday, Wednesday afternoon. As I was checking, found out that area, which was private land, they had started timber harvest. All of a sudden, my hunt was canceled. So pay attention before you leave your house. Make a call, get online, those kinds of things.
On the disability deal. I got the disability originally for being a veteran, over 30%. Now I'm having mobility issues and things. Do I be upgraded? Because the only thing I know I'm getting really is the discounted license fees, or does that consider the same as?
If you're already in the system as a disabled vet, 30% or more, you don't have to do any update. You still qualify for all the programs. In fact, I'm gonna talk about one here. Today's the deadline for the Inland Empire, the paper company. They give us 25 family permits every year, but I'll talk about that here coming up when we get to the different opportunities. That's a good question. Thank you.
If you feel that there's a change in your status and maybe something that you might have need for more accommodations, it's never gonna hurt to call and say, hey, I've had some changes. Am I still qualified for that, or do I need to submit more paperwork?
And since you're in the VA system, have they scheduled you for another evaluation to up that percentage number?
Oh, right. I mean, people are 40.
Right. VA math for non-veterans.
Yeah, the math does not work.
I've already.
So I need to call somebody, because when I first got my disability, it was only like 15%. Now I'm 100.
You're at 50%?
I'm at 100 now.
Oh, okay. No, you don't have to call anybody. It doesn't affect your rating with us or with the program.
Well, yes, but like I checked my license, it doesn't say disabled, like 100 on my license.
Okay,
Then yeah, you need to.
you may be biased. All right, so,
Sure, I got the discounted tags and whatnot, but.
all right. That's because okay, you still have to fill out the first application, and that's how to get. That's reduced fee. The first application I'm going to show you here is this yellow one. And that's just to get your status changed in their system as disabled. If you're only in there as a disabled vet, you're not going to get probably any other notification from them unless you fill out the very first application. And that's just to get status as disabled hunter in their system.
Okay.
All right. I got lots of applications over here on the table. You need the one that says Hunter Fisher Disability Status Application.
Okay.
And if you've already filled out the veterans one, then this is the only one you need to fill
I
complete.
have sent that to 11. That's how I got.
Okay.
Reduced license fee.
Yeah. So what I would recommend is if you're a disabled vet, and you don't have status with them yet, you need to fill out 2 applications. But make one appointment with your doctor. Have them sign both forms so you don't have to make another appointment later. We'll go over all that here really quick. We're gonna try and take a break at noon for lunch, get the kitchen's ready. In the meantime, we're gonna continue into the application part. Any questions before we go forward? All right. All right, here's what you need to get disabled status. And again, it's gonna come down to the WAC here gives you all the different informations. And then you're gonna click on one of these, veteran reduced license fees, reduced license fees for civilian. And this is the first one, instructions. Number one, that hunter fisher disability status. Take care of that one first and then download the veteran or the civilian. Okay? That's what the application looks like. The ones I have over here are just black and white. You notice it says temporary or short-term disabilities are not permitted. For instance, if you got a red handicap parking permit, that's short-term, that's not permanent. That only lasts for up to a certain length of time. The blue one, if you qualify for the blue one, which is permanent, then you probably qualify for this.
Have that.
Okay,
Hey, Ken,
yeah,
also just so you know, a lot of people don't know this, but with your disabled placard, the blue ones, you can get it where you have two placards, you can get ones with a license plate that has it on there, so you don't have to put a placard up there and you just get one of the placards for your other vehicle. So it's just something that if you don't know that, and then some of you with 100% disability through the VA, you can get one of your vehicles that you don't pay license fees on.
that doesn't help the parking, you still gotta use the placard.
Have applied for that 100%.
The permanent 100% disability?
Yeah, for my truck,
Yeah.
Yeah, they only let you do it and put it on one vehicle.
but I haven't received anything back, is it? And they let you know?
I would check with the Department of Licensing, it's all your local office, but that's where I got mine done.
When they're due. There's like.
All right, silence your phone. All right, there's a difference here now on reduced fees. If you're a veteran, at 30% or more, you qualify for reduced fees. And that means you get free access to all the programs that are available, and we're gonna talk about a lot of those today. If you're a civilian, the only way you can get the reduced fees is if you're in a wheelchair 100%. The reason the veterans get it is, the way I'm told by the licensing office in Olympia, is by virtue of our service to the country. That's it. So to be a civilian and get the reduced fee, you gotta be in a wheelchair. I don't wish that on anybody. Although I think Z does more in his chair than I do on my feet. All right,
But not on my feet.
so it's my feet's the problem, is that it?
Feet, yeah.
Okay. We were talking about veterans reduced fees. Any other veterans in here that have a question about that? Okay. If one does pop up later, please get a hold of me or Z during the break and we'll try and work it through it with you. And that's the veterans application. All right, that's where you get your VA sentence rating letter. And that's also on the back of the application here. And by the way, a lot of programs will say you need to have your veterans rating letter dated within a certain time period. Well, every time you download it, it puts that date on it. So it's never going to expire.
Well, we need to write that down.
5 years.
All right. Companion hunters, this I don't think we can ever spend enough time on. Because I've gone out to the woods, this was my mistake. I've gone out and had a disabled hunter as my companion. That doesn't work when it's time to retrieve an animal, is it? Fortunately, it was just birds, but it's very important that the person who you designated the companion hunter on that particular hunt is able to physically retrieve the animal for you. They also have permission to shoot for you within a 1/4 mile range, but only if you have direct communication. And that don't mean smoke signals. That means by radio, by phone, or hand signal, something. You have direct eye-to-eye contact with them through a 1/4 mile distance. They can pull the trigger for you. A lot of us, we still want to do it ourselves, right?
Right.
So make sure you have somebody who can go get that trigger for you and dress it out and bring it back.
Critical aspect of that, like Ken was saying, they've got to be physically able to go down in that ravine or whatever, to be able to work that animal and harvest it. But on top of that, you want to make sure you've got somebody that actually knows how to field dress an animal. You don't want to take somebody and go, well, yeah, I see that you're down there. No, don't put there. All right, so this goes back to that, let's make sure our planning and our preparation is appropriate.
And they have to be licensed hunters as well.
Correct.
So,
Are they able to harvest? one
yes,
for themselves?
in some programs, yes.
Going back to the road access, as you read through the road access booklet, it will tell you there are some areas that it says your companion hunter may harvest an animal, but every single time that is available, it is after that hunter with a disability has harvested their animal.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to harvest first and then you can hunt. And in some places, it'll say you can use your vehicle, a side-by-side pickup, whatever it is, to haul out the disabled person's vehicle. But you gotta drag your own vehicle out yourself. It depends on the program. I know with, used to be Hancock, but it's now Manulife. That's one of their rules. We'll get to that here soon. All right. There's that part about the quarter mile. During Zia and I going back and forth talking about this, we may jump ahead a slide or two, but like this, we already talked about that and there it is. All right, special use permits. This is one of the reasons that orange placard does nothing for you but for identification purposes now. If you qualify for one of the 3 special use permits, then you're gonna get a little laminated piece of paper that goes in your wallet for some of you may already have it. I know I met somebody at the show and showed me all 3 of his. He qualified for all 3 special use permits. One being able to shoot from his vehicle, one to use a crossbow during regular archery season, and the other one was the scoping device. He qualified for all 3. Each one's gonna be different, and be able to qualify for it is quite challenging. The doctor has to have a great narrative explaining exactly why you need to be able to shoot from a vehicle, why you need that, you have some kind of visual problem, and there's definition of that in the regs. Also, why you need maybe you have a shoulder issue that is inoperable and it's permanent. That'll get you the ability to use a crossbow during archery season.
Along with this, if you are awarded, if you're drawn for a road access hunt, you're going to get a letter that describes your hunt that you've been drawn for. You want to have that letter with you at all times when you're on the other side of that gate.
Yep. Any questions on this? All right. Now let's talk about the different, who says lunch? That means food. You want to take your lunch break now?
Okay.
Is the kitchen ready?
I don't see any of our cooks back there.
Food's on the table. Looks like there's some is.
Standing by.
Ask them if they still need 20 minutes. Just say how much time.
About 5 minutes.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back to this. I don't want to start with opportunities and then break and then come back.
Have to fill out again.
We gotta get another table.